znowu ze strony Agoro! Welcome to the Amazon European Masters, coming at you live from the studios in Berlin. It's semi-finals time, baby, as we see BDS Academy and GameWard facing off against each other in a full LFL series. My name is Orchid, I'm joined by Trouble and Jarmada of what supposedly is going to be a banger of a match. Trouble, how are you doing?
I don't know, I'm dressed as female Gulbok today.
Female?
So, I'm here to rep the LFL, I guess. It's very fitting.
LFL?
Hello, Jarmada. Happy to work with you as well.
Also,
no NLC.
Yeah, it's been a very long time, no NLC teams. It's very sad.
I'm
Also,
crying
we have
inside.
you guys.
Also, though, yeah, whilst we're both here together, also resident LFL shill.
Oh.
So yeah, give me. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, she really did
You know,
that.
I wish production would just Photoshop like a flag right here with me waving.
Anyways, we currently find ourselves in the semi-final, which means only the best 4 teams are left in the tournament. Let's rewind for a bit and have a look at our quarterfinals to see how they played out, because Trouble, some of them delivered, some of them don't.
I don't know. I think whatever expectations we had for the quarterfinals were clearly crushed. The series that we expected to go all 5 games were literally swept into 3, and the series that we expected to be clean 3-0s were actually bangers all 5 games.
Yeah, I mean, forget like crushed. It was just completely flipped. Last weekend was opposite weekend,
Yeah.
apparently. Every single series was like, yeah, this is probably going 4, probably even 5 games. It ended up being a complete stomp. And yeah, this LDLC Dusty series was the complete opposite. We thought this was going to be a 3-0. It ended up being 5 games where Dusty honestly made LDLC work for their semi-final spot, something that I think no one really had down. We saw this this draw and was like, yeah, Dusty probably going home very early on in playoffs. And I mean, honestly, they did us proud.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when we're talking about tournament favorites, LDLC is a name that got into the equation back in spring. They only got knocked out at the finals by K-Corp, the former champions. And now coming back into summer, they're again the tournament favorites, alongside Heretics, who I think it was a little bit of a surprise that this series actually went to 5 games, because a lot of people thought that Unicorns were this very strong, calculated early game team that would beat you through very raw macro. And honestly, I feel like Heretics are the LPL of the ERLs. They will fight you in the early, they'll take skirmishes, they'll take the brawls, and once they snowball that early, they'll take the entire game.
I mean, for me, as a neutral viewer, I gotta say it, because I am the host, so I have to be neutral.
I don't know, man, you did give predictions.
I loved this series. It was very entertaining to watch, and also very unexpected once more.
Yeah, I mean, I got to cast it, and my oh my, was it so fun. I mean, I think, like you said, Heretics now kind of becoming a new favorite of their own right here in this tournament. I think they earned it with this series, to be honest with you, because most people had Unicorns down as maybe the team that would go to contest LDLC in the finals. Everyone was like, okay, Unicorns on this side of the bracket, they're probably cruising all the way. Heretics had something else to say about that, and I think right now, Heretics looking so damn strong, especially through the bottom lane, through the early games, where I'm super impressed with them at the moment.
But we will not be seeing them, unfortunately, today. Who we will be seeing today is GameWard, and they got rid of, Trouble, I hate to say it, they got rid of X7,
I'm
but they
losing consciousness.
like they kicked them off the rift.
Oh man, I think this was the most disappointing series as an NLC viewer, because even though X7 came in as the 2nd seed of the NLC, I think they still looked like the strongest team the NLC has to offer through spring into summer. And I think GameWard literally switched up their game. They played for that early game, and very inconsistent mid-top coming in from X7 was very exploited, I'd like to say, Jamada.
Yeah, I feel like the fact that Tempt and Chasey very clearly came into the series off their usual form that we'd expect from them really just facilitated GameWard to run over this game. And even though you can definitely point towards the weaknesses that the X7 laners had, I think obviously there's a lot to be spoken about, rather, with Akabane and his performance and how the rest of GameWard really huddled around him in that series.
But stay tuned, because we're going to talk about this after.
Yeah, we have a lot to cover, because, I mean, the opponent of GameWard tonight, BDSA, I mean, they've been looking very dominant as well, coming through in the main stage.
Yeah, absolutely. And this time I had the pleasure of casting this very quick and swift 3-0 series.
We were very experienced
from
today.
BDSA. I feel like Vitality B kind of went down without the fight. I didn't necessarily see any soul. I didn't see any signs of going back at it for BDSA. It felt like from early to late, even when things didn't work out in the first game for BDSA in the bot lane, when they did draft for that Caitlyn, they did manage to win towards the top side of the map. And for a team that's actually trying to play through bot, doesn't work, but they still get pulled out the hole, it is very dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, Vitality B, like you said, they looked pretty much lifeless. I think only really game 3 is where they showed us something to actually, you know, say, hey, maybe they can give us something in this series. Maybe they could actually make the reverse sweep happen. But even then, BDSA was still very happy to shut down this top side draft that they ended up trying to go for, play through Segenda, which is what we expect from them, and nothing really came from it, and they got 3-0'd.
I mean, I gotta be honest, looking at all these quarterfinals, this was just a small sample of what we're going to expect from these semis, because from here on Trouble, it's only gonna get more and more hype.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to LFL Masters. We have now renamed.
Featuring LVP.
Featuring LVP.
We gotta bring some friends over, you know? But yeah, this looks very LFL dominated. It looked extremely LFL dominated over in spring, and I think if anything, even though for some people it might be boring, they're like, oh, LFL again, you know, we have to celebrate the development and the players and the teams and the play that this region brings to the table. The fact that we had full LFL finals over in spring, it means that no other region were able to rival them. And right here, they've already solidified themselves, one LFL team at least in the finals again.
And I mean, if you watch a lot of Amazon European Masters, it seemed to be the topic we always come back to. The LFL is looking strong once again, but if we think of the last 3 splits, this has always been the case. And it's still the case even with Karmine Corp missing out. And Jamada, if I say the name Karmine Corp, I have to look at you, but them not being here opens up a lot of doors for all these teams.
Yeah, it really does. And I think the fact that they didn't make it kind of just shows how strong the LFL is as a region at the moment. And like you say, it's really opened up the floodgates. Some of the lower rated teams, of course, GameWard here today, that we maybe even writing off, now look like they could also go the distance. Karmine Corp have kind of set the standard that we expect for a lot of these LFL teams.
I don't know, man. Karmine Corp not being here and going back to 2021, we're like, it was NOC versus LFL. It was Karmine Corp who knocked us out in spring twice with Fnatic and XL back then. And I'm like, I kind of like wiped some sweat off my forehead. I'm like, they're not here, guys. It's NOC's year, where it's not going to be the case, because if K-Corp are not here, it means that there's even stronger opponents for every other region to go up against an LFL.
Now, I'm going to throw in a little curveball here, because Karmine Corp in spring, Jamada, we were all a bit questioning it, because they didn't come into main stage. They had to play, you know, fight their way into the tournament.
Yeah, I mean, they had a really shaky looking playoffs last play as well, which I recall kind of shaking everybody's confidence in their ability to actually make the distance again, make the 3-peat happen. But I feel like it's just a play-in buff or something, right? Yeah. You go through all of that lengthy tournament compared to just going from groups, and it really seemed to work for them. They just beat all of our expectations.
I mean, that's kind of the curse trouble when you come in after that dream team that was Karmine Corp. Like, they have 4 out of 5 members making it into LEC, like the split after right away.
I feel like over in 2021 spring was where the whole Karmine Corp train actually started. We had players such as Adam, Synkrov, Seiken, Xmati, Targamas. After that split, 4 out of 5 of them, except Seiken, moved over to the LEC. Fast forward to now, and they had Cabochard and Reckless in the team instead. So it was a super team that they developed. Then there was another super team that was created again for Karmine Corp. And if anything, it shows you how the LFL is, 1, developing talents, but 2, also bringing the competition over. And if teams are able to beat a team with Cabochard and Reckless and Seiken in it, it speaks for the strength of these 3 teams that we have in the quarterfinals.
So if we put this narrative in perspective, Jamada, surely NLC will win next split, right? Because they will be better than LFL?
Surely, man.
And maybe with a 4th seed, Smile? I know.
Because our third seed is not doing that well right now.
Yeah, we need a fourth seed because our third seed doesn't seem to make it. Or our playing seed never seems to make it out.
Anyways, let's talk about tomorrow because it will be a 10 series. That's the last non-LFL team will have to put up a fight. Let's talk a bit about tomorrow's series already. What are you looking forward to? Because it's going to be Heretics taking on LDLC.
Ooh, okay, so in spring, we said that in the series between X7 and LDLC, whoever took each other down in the quarterfinals, that would end up being the winner. Wasn't the case. LDLC lost to Kamilius. I think this time it might actually be the case, though. I feel between LDLC and Heretics, whichever wins that semi-final might have their chances to go straight into this finals and take it all. I feel if anything, Heretics is that one team left that's playing that very brutal, aggressive, skirmish, heavy playstyle, whilst LDLC have seemed to not do their best when they're matched up against that style.
Yeah, and I do gotta say this as I want to look into the camera because Heretics, listen to me, you're not playing only to stay in the tournament for the LVP. You're doing it for the entirety of Europe.
Everybody's that's not French. That's what you're doing it for.
Because as Trundle already mentioned, LDLC showed some weaknesses, but I gotta be honest, Heretics wasn't too clean either.
Yeah, I mean, it was very back and forth. I think you probably more would lean towards the strengths of Unicorns, perhaps, in that front. And, you know, Heretics kind of overcoming what we were saying as these very high bars and standards that Unicorns seem to set for themselves. I think Heretics coming into this still have a lot of strengths to talk about, specifically the bottom lane. But also, when you look towards the other side for LDLC, despite the shakiness, you could arguably say, I mean, the narrative was that X, Kick, and DOS were the best bot lane in Europe, in the ERLs. So I think that's probably going to be one of the big sort of black hole sinking points of pressure that I'm going to be looking at.
I mean, if anything, these are the two teams that are coming into a semi-final having played 5 full games in their quarterfinals. So they have a bunch of footage for their opponents and they have a bunch of practice in official scrims, if you will.
Now, that was only just a quick look at tomorrow's series, but now let's jump into today's series. Because it will be another LFL duo, and before we start talking about that, let's have a look at what we can expect from both of these teams.
Feels like they've been so close to greatness with all these team fights.
They just can't find the cross.
Oh, here we go! The flank back is great! Czekolad is dead! But the Thor ult is better! This Sivir is just 2 down, but can't go on this! The stopwatch is fantastic! Just to keep Innaxe alive. Then Voxner does.
The hole in trade. Actually, that chunk could be meaningful with that dragon being started. Now Jack in trouble. Flash is still going through! What a phenomenal W from Sheo. Don't want to fight there.
Somehow X7 are holding this fight together. Melonik flushes forwards and down they go. One by one. X7 are crumbling.
In the 5 as well. They're teleporting in. They want this fight. Oh my God. The Emperor Divine Fatality B from their lives. Reeker with a quadra kill.
Kassim will be going down. An ace for the side of GameWard.
I mean, if that doesn't get you hyped, because prepare for a banger today, as both BDSA and GameWard are still unbeaten in this EU Masters main stage. Let's start our pre-analysis with Team BDS Academy, because they have improved quite a lot throughout the year, and if I only look at those fights, Trouble, I'm curious to see what's going to happen today.
Actually, I was the one who put my finger on them in my cast when they were playing versus Vitality B, and I said, BDSA were the shame of the LFL over in spring. They were the only LFL team to not make it out of groups. And actually, they were in a pretty, quote-unquote, easy group, if you will, to make it out, if not as a first seed, at least as a second one. Now, back then, of course, BDS had their superstar AD carry that they still have. They have Crownie. They were playing for Crownie. They were ganking for Crownie. It was not enough. It was very easily read. It was very easily shut down as a plan. Fast forward to now, LFL went pretty well all the way to finals. Groups undefeated. Why? They've swapped their playstyle. They were playing towards shadowing Adam, giving him a pretty good matchup and making sure that he stays safe throughout the entire game and then snowballing through him. And as you can see, 9 games played, 9 wins on the board. Fast forward to the quarterfinal series, and they switch it up again. They play towards Crownie, they gank for Crownie, and it works. This is a team that not only adapts, but also develops, because not the other tactics did not work, but because they can make every single playstyle work for them.
So, Jamal, what do you think was the main reason that they suddenly play through Crownie?
I feel like when they looked at Vitality B, they felt like, I mean, we heard it from Reeker verbatim on this interview. They said, we felt like Adam could do us again in lane, just 1-to-1. So we're very happy to play through the bottom side of the map. And Jessica and Jack Troll hadn't been having the best of groups, and I feel like their series all in all as well was relatively weak, but I think definitely the fact that BDSA focused them down so heavily was just a symptom of that. They felt like they had a strong top side matchup, and they could very happily just funnel resources into the bottom side where Vitality B typically don't play into.
So let's start talking about that topside matchup, because looking at BDS Academy, that's where the A stands for, now you know.
BDSA Academy.
Yeah, I want to talk a bit about Adam. I mean, not me, you want to talk about Adam, because Adam seems to be... You want to talk about Adam, because Adam seems to be the ERL Slayer. I don't know how to put it, but all of a sudden, he just like stomps every top laner he comes across.
This reminds me of 2021 spring, Adam, who booked his ticket straight to the LEC with Fanatics, 640 damage per minute on something like an Aatrox for a guy who sticks to a side lane and very rarely will group up in these early game fights with his team. Is an extraordinary number to have when it comes to damage meters. And the fact that this guy does it only and mainly through that side lane means that whoever actually tries to join to the gank or shut him down, he takes them down one by one. 4 solo kills for this guy on the side lane, 4 just on Aatrox. It's absolutely absurd.
I mean, all of a sudden he also gets a pentakill on a Gnar, Jamada. I don't see that happen very often.
He was technically handed the pentakill.
I mean,
so, you know...
Listen, man, that was a brilliant Gnar right there. He deserved it.
Yeah, he did deserve the penta, to be fair. Yeah, I mean, Adam has definitely shown a whole bunch of growth very clearly, and he's still leaning into his strengths. Not only that, I feel like BDSA are very happy to lean into his strengths as well as a player, which is just dominating the 1v1. He's already been doing that for the last year and a half, and I think the fact that BDSA are giving him so much freedom just kind of facilitates BDSA as a team to continue to grow with this style.
Absolutely.
Well, BDSA came into the Amazon European Masters as one of the favorites, but there's also the LFL 4th seed GameWard that looks very strong at the moment. And I asked Czekolad last week about his team's growth throughout this tournament.
Yeah, honestly, like we started handling better with the pressure. I think play-ins buff is like really broken, honestly. Like we have so many competitive games lately, and like there is a lot of teams through play-ins that won EU Masters. Like I think K-Corp last split as well.
Yep.
And I remember LDLC maybe 1 year ago. I'm not sure, but it was with Mateo. So like playing buff is really good, I think, for the main stage.
Playing is just really broken trouble.
Absolutely. The fact that you can have an elongated tournament at the beginning of EU Masters, and don't get me wrong, Plains is really rough to come through, but once you have what I call official scrims and official games under your belt, you're coming into the group stage very warmed up. There's only 6 games in the group stage. You lose 1, you lose 2, you lose 3, you're suddenly out. But if you're already warmed up and you've beaten everyone before, the buff is real. Calm & Cope, we didn't have expectations for them over in spring. They did the Plains to Champions run. Big has done it as well. I think having these extra games really does help to ramp up.
And I think GameWard's AD carry, Innaxe, said it very well in his interview right after Plains. Like, yeah, you know, you get into the groove, the first game jitters are gone, you start to understand how the meta works on this patch, and that's something that's very important to these players, Jamada.
Yeah, it feels like attending any tournament, right? You do it once and all of a sudden you're there again, and it just feels like every day. And I think, especially in the context of where we're at in the metas as well, 12-13 to 12-15 was a pretty big jump for a lot of teams, and I think the fact that you get that stage experience on 12-15 in the play-ins and you're able to kind of get a bit of a sort of forward jump compared to the main stage teams, definitely, specifically this year, has probably helped GameWard a whole bunch in developing how they want to play the game.
Now, let's talk about this team, because if we look at GameWard, something I really noticed is like, they seem to be a very smart team. They really know how to read the map well, and they know what to do to get the upper hand in the game.
I feel like GameWard are one of the most calculated, well-disciplined teams coming out of the LFL. Their macro is really quick, but it's also... The rotations are so done to perfection, the entire map moves in harmony together, and it's so difficult to shut them down when they play what we call clean textbook League of Legends in terms of rotations.
Yeah, they are really sort of like by the books, and I feel like their jump from groups to this playoff stage matchup against X7 was an extra step on top of that, where they were doing everything you were saying, but instead of, you know, being at Sif gear, they just knocked it up to 7, and they were very happy to just kind of blitz X7 in a way which we hadn't really seen from GameWard, because normally they're a little more passive, like you say, they're almost kind of a tactician team. Usually they'll avoid conflict, but in that X7 game, they were very happy to just pull the trigger, fight, and still achieve all of their objectives that they would normally go about without trying to look for fights anyway.
Now, skipping a bit forward, though, GameWard versus
BDSA.
BDS Academy. What are we expecting? Are we expecting bloodbaths?
I'm definitely expecting bloodbaths, and the thing here is that I agree with Jamada, and I think one of the big factors on the fact that GameWard actually functioned the way they did had to be their jungler, Akabane. This guy was on fire start to finish. He was scene champion, he was killing champion. I think Jamada said something over in rehearsal when he was like...
He just decided to cosplay 2019 Canyon. That's basically what he decided to do.
And the other thing is like, they just literally just played mid-game because early game was already done by Akabane himself.
Yeah, if you win the early game because you just have the better jungler, then I guess you just jungle diff, I guess. Yeah, it's the most broken role in the game, and Akabane was definitely showing off that. I agree as well. I played the role. He was
weird flex, but okay.
But he was really, you know, a step above Viking in this series, and I think, you know, Sheo as well on the opposite side sure had a very good series, but I think Akabane, the fact that we got to see more of a carry-orientated performance is probably the biggest differentiator, because we don't get to see that too frequently, especially this summer. It's a lot of facilitators usually.
Exactly, and I agree. I mean, think of all the champions, like the Sejuanis, the Trundles that people like to say, the Poppies that people like to say. I just literally named the entire champ pool of Sheo. But like Akabane goes towards the Wukong, he goes towards the Vi, and look at the numbers. For a jungle to pull 504 damage per minute is absolutely absurd. And the difference between the two junglers behind me is that Sheo is a lot more utility champion-based jungler because he has such strong solo lanes. All he has to do is shadow them, create engages, and disengage for his team. But Akabane here is the true carry. Talking about Sheo facilitating.
Yeah, he's facilitating something.
I mean,
that was unfortunate.
How to become the better jungler?
Dirty.
How to become the better jungler is just don't let the other jungler play at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very solid tactic, and I mean, especially in the context of this draft, you're playing against just Jarvan as the primary engage and you're on Poppy, you don't let Skeens have fun in this series. He really didn't throughout. And yeah, I think Sheo, like you were saying, Trouble, I think the fact that BDSA have such strong solo laners in particular really sets you up, and I think when you sort of take a step back and look at how BDSA were prioritizing picks as well throughout that series, I think the fact that they were leaning on Azir so frequently to kind of just give themselves pretty much dedicated mid lane shove kind of gives Sheo the ability to not only, like we were kind of talking about, go towards Adam, which they've loved to do, but in this series as well, go towards Crownie and Erdote. And I think just having that open map and freedom to kind of do whatever you want on these facilitators to set up your laners just makes it so easy.
Now, I do wonder how this is going to play out, because I saw only one champion from Sheo, and I saw one champion being on top for Akabane. Like, the matchup between the Poppy and the Vi, yeah, from what I know from experience, you don't have a good time as a Vi.
It's fine, because you can open up with your R on the AD carry. Poppy's not always going to be there to press her W in time. But talking about the Vi, I think she's one of the most broken current champions on the patch because of how easily she can gank in that early game. She's basically the new Xin Zhao, just better, because she can reach that backline with the ultimate. Now, fun fact, it's not just Akabane that plays the Vi. Sheo plays the Vi as well. And second fun fact, they are both 100% winner on the champion throughout their entire career, not just the EU Masters.
It's a broken champion, and I mean, I wonder if that means now. I wonder if now that means we're going to get a whole bunch of like sort of pretty much first pick ban prior on it. And the other thing as well was the Azir, because that had a lot of prior in the BDSA series, like I was talking about earlier. I think that the fact that they've kind of shifted to that a little bit in groups, they only played it once, but then the fact that they had such high priority in it in that matchup in the quarterfinals kind of makes me wonder, are they going to try and run the same strat just to have a consistent mid shove? Because we've definitely seen Czekolad on a lot of majors that will mostly buy space, and then occasionally his sort of handshake champions like the Sylas or the Akali.
Oh, the Swain,
and, you know, Sylas, rather Azir, can kind of struggle into those picks, but I think if BDSA want to, again, have that open map, then it's definitely a pick they're going to look to lean on and consistently prioritize early on.
Yeah, and I just really like the fact that if you put in your jungler on facilitating picks, you need that priority mid lane, as you previously said, Jamada. So having that Azir there to constantly push, that means that not only you're allowed to pull ganks with your jungler or invades, but you're also uninvadable yourself. Talking about invades, a lot of priority. Kalista comes into play because he gives perma prior to that freaking bot lane. He's such a strong level 1 champion that if played correctly through that bot, through that level 1, you can dictate the entire pace of how the bot lane is going to go. Now, quick maths here, 70% plus win rate for his entire career for the side of Innaxe. Crownshot has not touched the champion in EU Masters or LFL, so clearly here we might see a ban thrown away towards Innaxe.
So we have a lot of information now. We talked about the champs, we talked about the teams, and we are almost ready for our first pick and ban. And I think it's a good time to start talking about what are we expecting from tonight. Are we expecting a full 5 game? Are we expecting a sweep with a 3-0? Trump, I'm going to start off with you. What are your expectations for tonight?
I want this to be a very close series. But
Watch
I feel
out
like,
what you say, what you're going to say now.
but I feel like BDSA do have the upper hand, especially how I saw them play in their particular series. I feel like their map movement is so freaking strong, and if they do manage to shut down Akabane in the early game, it's not going to look pretty for GameWard at all. So I'm going to go for a BDSA win, but it's going to be 3-1.
Jawado, we've been spoiled, unfortunately, with your prediction. Elaborate on the BDSA pick.
Nice copy right there, Jawado.
Thank you, except I think it's going to be a 5-game series. As much as I very highly rate BDSA's ability to play the game, and I've definitely been very sold on their sort of typically solo lane and high-tempo gameplay with Sheo kind of facilitating the lanes, after what I saw from GameWard in the quarterfinals, I actually feel like they might be able to go toe-to-toe with them. But I think the outcome will be that BDSA comes out on top. I just don't think that BDSA are always going to have the answer to everything that GameWard potentially have prepped for us, because we have to remember, we haven't really seen GameWard be stress tested so far this tournament. Even, you know, the only time you can maybe mention it is play-ins where they went 2-1. But even then, since they've made it to main, they've gone undefeated. They took out X7 3-0, who most people thought were going to win the series in the first place.
Both these teams haven't suffered a loss yet this main stage, so it's kind of interesting to see how they will, you know, cope after a loss, because one of them is going to lose game 1.
Now, the very interesting thing is that when none of these teams has had a best-of-5 series, like Samantha said, they haven't been tested, which means there might be a bunch of champions that they have left. And, of course, when you're playing a semi-finals, you're looking towards the finals as well, and you don't want to reveal every single card that you've got in your sleeve. But if it goes to all 5 series, you bet that both teams will want to pull that card out.
And if you might be wondering why I chose GameWard, that is basically because Czekolad said I was a clueless caster, so I don't know what I'm talking about. So we're close to the start of game number 1, so let's head it over quickly to our casters. Wow. Ox. It's Ox, Oshin, and Amira for Champ Select. I'm so sorry, Dad, for butchering your name.
I love
how,
name. Yeah, I was going to say, if anyone's name, I was going to say, we're far more intriguing.
I feel like people butcher your name when intriguing.
Yeah.
Simple. I might be simple, but intriguing.
Your literally Twitch name is Ox was taken. Done.
It was.
Welcome, one and all, back to the Amazon E-Masters. We are starting up our first semi-final, first game of our semi-finals. And look, we talked about it. LFL Powerhouse, they've performed it again. I still think there's a little bit to be proven. I think there's, BDSA. I think they definitely come in as the heavy favorites. But GameWard are no spring chickens.
Yeah, because we have 2 teams. There's actually a lot of momentum coming into this, right? I think that BDS Academy, they were the winners of the LFL Redemption match when you had Vitality B versus BDS Academy, 2 teams which actually from the LFL hadn't found the successes that they wanted to. BDS Academy crushed that quarterfinals. They're coming in with a massive head of steam, but they've got to go up against GameWard, which have been having their own kind of rolling momentum too. They came in from play-ins, and they continue to grow on strength and strength.
Yeah, I just think the crazy thing is that both of them came out with that 3-0. Game would have dropped 1 game, and with BDSA, it's none. I just feel like both of them are such on mad tears. It's going to be such a clash between them, and these 2 fantastic teams are getting seeded today.
And it's again just kind of adding more and more power to the LFL. It feels like, they're going to have all the
LFL
Infinity
are
Stones.
pretty good.
They're all right, you know what I mean? Well, look, I'm going to go ahead and say it. They might become the LCK of EU Masters, where they get a lot of teams to finals, maybe not win. We'll have to wait and see. But I like to keep it a little bit open for that one.
You really can't miss an opportunity this
No, I always have to. It's so fun. So fun to do it. You got to get the interactions up. Anyway, going back into it. I do think that GameWard have got a lot of strengths to their play. I think obviously the one that we always look towards is Czekolad in that mid lane, but the way the meta is kind of sitting right now, it does feel like it's not about what you do in lane per se, but how you use that momentum in the other stages of the game.
Yeah, and it does really give a lot of value to have multiple directions you can go. And I think actually out of the LFL teams, GameWard were the most versatile in terms of going towards different sides of the map. I was chatting to Rudude, who's one of the LFL English casters, said they're the big thinkers of the LFL, and they can just look at your team comp and say, that's a loss condition. If we do this, you just lose. And they're very good at kind of like doing this great kind of mental gymnastics or, okay, not that, other mental things which kind of lead them to the victory, strategizing.
I was going to say,
game.
that's when they lose and in their head they're like, we won.
But they're very good at kind of looking at your team comp and seeing their path to victory. Whereas on the other side, BDS Academy, they were this team that seemed a bit more one track. They were a bit more like we play through top lane. But even then, in their quarterfinals, they showed a massive amount of development. I think the versatility from both of these teams will be on show in this best of 5.
It'll be interesting to see what take we have on it. It'll obviously be quite dependent on draft. I think first bans, we saw pretty consistent things out of the bans from both teams. Kalista was something that was heavily prioritized by Crownie, and Caitlyn was something heavily prioritized by Crownie, and the Kalista was so frequently banned against Innaxe.
And I think actually with that Caitlyn, very interestingly, it was BDS Academy, if we're talking about that versatility, which they started to show in the quarterfinals. It's Crownie doesn't typically do early game as of this summer. In spring, definitely did a little bit more. They played a lot more towards that 2v2 in the first half of the year, but then coming into this bit, playing towards that Caitlyn was not something that I expected. Now, it didn't really work out in the way that we normally expect Caitlyn to in terms of crushing lane advantages, but the fact that they were going towards that in the first place was a big difference for them. If they have any of their champions in the pocket to do the same, very interesting to see them pull that out.
Yeah, interesting. Something we haven't seen in the bans is the Azir. Both teams have heavily lent on that in their quarterfinals, so it could be something the BDS Academy prioritize here and try and deny away from Czekolad. And obviously a lot of AD carry bans coming through, especially with the fact that we've seen Zeri nerfed. I mean, Sivir's still open and available. We could see them go in various directions.
Yeah, that is it. Completely agree with something in the quarterfinals that we were screaming at Vitality B. Just ban it. Just get rid of it. If your team plays Azir, it should be banned against you. Reeker had that insane quadra kill.
Oh, that's so good.
And honestly, I think that was the play of the tournament. It was all the eye candy, all the damage.
Play of the tournament so far.
Yeah, I like how you think. But either way, looking at Czekolad now, and while he has had a versatile champion pool as well, can maybe pull out something like a Swain to try and threatened there, but I'm really wondering now what GameWard do about this mid-jungle, because you tend to lose prio against that Azir. You need to have something to combat him and maybe force some kill threat.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing, is obviously a lot of people talked about how the meta, especially before Zeri was nerfed, obviously we are on 12-16, we did change patch for knockouts. With Zeri nerfed, that has moved a bit away from that bot lane meta being as much of a focus, but it still is very centric towards it, and mid lane priority is so vital in leaning towards that bot lane. Having a Sivir AD carry is great in terms of scaling, but if she falls behind because the enemy team has control of mid, you'll be in a rough spot.
Yeah, because when you are when you're trying to like just pile on bot side, and let's be honest, both of these AD carries have been late game insurance. They have loved to get those that ability to carry in the late game. It really was in the quarterfinals where BDS Academy showed that they played towards that bot lane themselves with stuff like the Azir prior playing out. At least now we're starting to see GameWard pick in an interactive mid-jungle 2v2 that can brawl with the enemy jungle, the enemy mid lane early on.
Yeah, and it's interesting actually that we see the Sejuani come out. We often actually saw BDS Academy banning Trundle so they could pick either the Poppy or the Sejuani. They opted to go for the Wukong ban instead. They still go for the Sejuani, so obviously Trundle, a great target to ult to be able to get all those stats. Now, something I do want to note is obviously there still hasn't been an AD carry pick for the side of BDS Academy. No bot lane picks at all, so GameWard expected to target away that pool and start off with that Renato.
Yeah, so got a lot of playmaking actually on both sides already right now in terms of that top side. Of course, we've lost the Sejuani flex as well between jungle and top. It has just been Adam going towards that Aatrox. Actually, Adam, another player I really want to highlight as well, because in groups, he was arguably the best performing player across the entire tournament. Had some incredible plays, got a pentakill, first of their competitive career. But coming into the quarterfinals, they succeeded in a different way. It wasn't through 1v1s, huge lane advantages. It was turning up to the team fights and just mauling through them. They played stuff like the Aatrox with the Soraka as well in the support, and just allowed Adam to be more of a 5v5 menace, which is not necessarily where we'd seen him go towards before. Locking in the Aatrox again, maybe signaling again more of that team fight value.
Yeah, and I mean, they actually ban away the Yuumi, but if there's any picks, like potentially the Renekton, which you don't want GameWard to get the hands on into the Aatrox, now's the time where you can sort of look to target and ban those away. we do see supports trim pretty heavily. So Lulu actually being taken off the cards. And I think that's something to mention for Kamilius. In their quarterfinals, despite the fact we've seen a big heavy lean more towards enchanters towards the end of the split, Kamilius was like, no, I don't care about that. I'm playing my Amumu, I'm playing my Leona. I want to be aggressive in setup plays. And of course, he has played those enchanters as well, but I feel like that diversity in the pool is going to do so much for them.
And what that led to, because they were against X7, of course, was when you saw the enemy team lock in that Yuumi and go, oh wow, we're going to scale, you just roam across the map and you end the game before they're even relevant. So if we're looking at this game again, where we're looking at this draft and say, okay, huge, tanky front line on top side, range to play around with Sejuani or Azir. If you're playing towards an enchanter there, if you lock in the engaged support last and you ruin the game early, maybe that stops BDS Academy getting off the ground.
This is an interesting one. Looking at the side here from GameWard. They're actually going for the Akali into it. So they're quite AP heavy, kind of saying to themselves, look, we got solo lanes that can make work. We got things that can get the good matchups because they saw the solo lanes so early.
Yeah, I mean, the Akali is obviously something that we've seen Melonik lean on before in the top lane. Obviously, typically a mid lane pick, especially in things like Silas, but can be a really potent threat onto that backline. I think ultimately that is something that GameWard need to get on, especially with this Aphelios coming in. The backline DPS is so good for BDS Academy. They want to lean into those front to backs, and really for GameWard, it's about breaking that open when it comes to those fights.
Now, I actually wonder if this is the angle for start locking in something like an engaged support on the side of BDS Academy as well, particularly if you have this quite volatile top side of the map, and you've got the Ahri and the Akali, which are very mobile but can get shut down. But instead, they're not going towards something which is more roam heavy. It is going towards that late game insurance, which they have been more typically known for. And on the other side, Kamilius bring out the Amumu, which we saw so much of in the quarterfinals.
Yeah, honestly, I feel like with the Tahm Kench, especially with the lean towards enchanters, I feel like a lot of players have gone, okay, let's pick something to scale. But Kamilius, as we said, has been someone who has lent into being that aggressive play, and GameWard have given themselves this composition where they want to set the pace of the game. They want to be trying to aggress the enemy team, which is why the Tahm Kench makes a lot of sense being able to shut that down and provide that safety net.
Particularly with a lot of the meta, at least within this tournament, being about find your first target, kill your first target. If you're going to put a Trundle on someone, start firing at them with the Amumu and the Akali, whatever else, piling onto the same target, the Tahm Kench can stop that in the tracks, buy space for the Aphelios, for the Azir to reset the fight and blow it open.
Both teams locked and loaded now coming into the Game 1 rift of Game 1. And I think that if you're looking at both teams, they've kind of gotten what they want. They've gone with what they've worked out is working for them so far this tournament. And neither side is going to really be unhappy. I think you've got big carries for both sides in the solo lanes. And again, big hard engage coming out from the big guys you always look towards, being, of course, Kamilius and, of course, the Sejuani on the side for BDS.
Yeah, and I really think those solo laners, which you're pointing out there on BDS Academy, they had such a good quarterfinals that they are the ones to watch for me on that side. On the other side, I'm looking at jungle support. I'm looking at this Trundle and the Amumu. I think they should be able to leverage their early matchups and start shutting down those solo laners before they do what they did, of course, in those quarterfinals. They wrecked house.
Yeah, and I feel like if we get to the late stage of the game and we don't see GameWard having pushed the pace forwards, if we don't see the successful plays from the jungle and support, that's where things start to get problematic, right? Because you're diving in, the Aatrox and the Azir can have so much value in those scenarios. Aphelios, a fantastic anti-dive champion if you can stay alive. And if you go behind, it's going to be so difficult as you are so short-ranged.
And that's something that Vitality B tried to do and failed versus BDS Academy.
Quite spectacularly.
Yeah, because they were a team, we thought that would be a 5-game series, so it's going to be Vitality B just skill checking all the time, playing through aggressive mid jungles, which of course we have another one here, got Trundle and Ahri, love to fight early. If you don't do that again here, GameWard are going to be in trouble. We've already seen that on paper versus their team they're pulling it out against.
Yeah, I think the big thing now is, again, like you said, it comes down to execution. It's about how you end up using those tools that you have built for yourselves. The Amumu, fantastic early engage, really powerful CC that can do so much alongside the Trundle, but we'll see if they're able to kind of catch themselves out. But we are jumping onto the Rift for game number 1, but before we can get into the action, do not forget to claim your August/September League of Legends monthly capsule for all of the Prime shoppers out there for your chance to get RP, Mythic Essence skins, and more.
And more.
There's more.
Wow.
I don't know what more, but there's more.
Maybe you too could know more if you're a Primer. Maybe no.
But there's no Prime League here. This is all LFL. This is all LFL.
So funny thing you mentioned that. That is brutal. However, something that Dino was saying on the quarterfinals, really credit to him for coming out with this one, is that it kind of feels like GameWard are actually kind of like a Prime League super team from an alternate timeline. Actually, every single member of GameWard used to be on a Prime League team. You had Akabane and Melonik that were on Berlin International Gaming. You had a couple of them mouse spots as well.
Erdote.
They might be taking down a first kill.
Yeah, Erdote. He's not going to bother flashing. He knows he's dead. And he's just going to fall down. The Amumu will get a second bandage stops between Reeker's probably going to lose his one. Never mind. Oh. And this is the GameWard, the support and jungle you were just talking about.
Exactly. You have to get these early leads in a way that Vitality B couldn't do versus BDS Academy quarterfinals. Just a minute and a half into game one of the semis, GameWard strike hard and they strike fast.
And I'm going to be real, Trundle plus Amumu, so good in their level 1 invades, but that one wasn't just GameWard setting up a good play. Erdote walked into that. The fact that you have the guaranteed Fog of War bandage toss, Erdote's dead for sure, but the fact that Reeker also goes down is an absolute disaster. And I think now he's going to have to burn TP to get to lane.
He did.
Yeah, going to be at such a deficit from minute 1. This is exactly what GameWard needed.
Yeah, and though you have lost your flash on the Trundle, I don't think you give monkeys about that. You've got now an Ahri that can very much threaten Reeker in that mid lane. Especially with getting the early control in the first level, particularly between Ahri and Azir in that matchup. You are looking to see what damage can be put down by the Azir at that level 1. The first couple of trades in that lane can start controlling the tone of that lane.
Yeah, and I feel like if you destabilize mid lane for BDSA, like picking the Azir, you want to have that permanent prio where possible. You want to have the control and stop Czekolad from moving. Anything that upsets that gives more play-making potential over to the side of GameWard, gives them more opportunities to set things up and find favor.
Yeah, and actually, I think that goes into a larger conversation about stability, actually, because BDS Academy, everything was very stable and under their control in the quarterfinals. It was only really game 3 where things got a little bit awkward when there was the Skander's Renekton game, where it got very difficult through that top side of the map. Outside of that, it was absolutely breezy for them. They've managed to control that early game, particularly through their solo lanes, having good priority, outlaning, and then, of course, Sheo having an incredible series, too. But he's on the Sejuani, waiting to really scale up to a point where he can go a little bit further and a bit more aggressively. And GameWard have not been giving them the option to so far.
Akabane just kind of putting himself now behind the turret. This is a dive option. Again, not a lot to do here for Crownie and Erdote, but the red gun keeping him at arm's length. They are going to lose a significant wave now coming into bot side.
And it's one of the big things since Tahm Kench got that rework where the Devour went onto his ultimate. Pre-6, you don't actually do that much for your AD carry to aggress on. Like, if you can land a W, sure, you can find a way to defensively peel, but you have to be so cautious about aggressive plays like that. They don't miss out on too much. They do have the power to ward them off, and Czekolad wasn't in a position to roam, but I like the continued pressure coming out from GameWard.
Yeah, and it's just, again, just making sure that BDS Academy can't get any easy leads through this bot lane. Of course, we do know that Crownie is an incredible late-game AD carry, especially during summer and spring. He was a little bit more focused on the early game, but for summer, BDS Academy found great success in just saying, all right, we're going to play through the top side of the map. That's where we're going to find our advantages. And then Crownie will be there later into the game.
That was a little close there. They wanted to try and put a ward down. They
felt
do
the breeze on the back.
Yeah, I was going to say, they definitely felt the wind whisk past their butt cheeks as that one there. As we can see, the Czekolad lands a charm there onto Reeker, so this should just be a little bit of harassment from Sheo and towards the mid lane. And it's actually interesting as well, because yes, we are seeing the trade-off on the top side of the map. It's very much a vertical jungling coming in right now, but it is about the difference in pressure that's coming out here from GameWard. GameWard are getting multiple ganks off, while the side of BDSA are just not really doing anything else. They're just getting the camps.
And it's exactly the right mindset as well. You can see that Czekolad back for Darksteel in the first back as well, which is something I'm a big advocate of, because if you're trying to snowball through a snowbally top side of the map, looking for the fights, using a higher target access to start getting kills early, then you want to make sure you double down on that, particularly in this composition. As we're talking about, stability is the name of the game for BDS Academy. GameWard are the ones with the onus on them to really do something. So again, right mindset being shown through by GameWard.
And I'm going to say, though, despite the fact that we've seen a lot of attention put towards the bot lane, Crownie's doing fine in terms of farm. Crownie hasn't died again. They still have all summoners. And I think there is going to be a window when Czekolad hits 6 before Erdote has his 6 that you can potentially look to try and set up a slow stack into a dive bot lane. I would love to see them capitalize on that window, because I feel like, you know, despite the good effort from GameWard, outside the initial invade, they haven't achieved too much. And BDS are probably fine with this, especially when you see how the top lane matchup is going up. Adam has really been bullying out Melonik with this comment on the Aatrox.
It's not like Kamilius has managed to get out on the map either, is the Amumu. We saw that a lot in their quarterfinals versus Vitality B, just showing their head mid, seeing if they can blow a flash, see if they can get the kill there. It's not really happened. So now we have just about even farm in that mid lane. Of course, Adam doing his thing and just being an incredible individual laner as well. Got a significant CS lead in isolation towards that top side. And I am really looking to see what Kamilius can do. Finally found himself onto the map, hanging around this mid lane, but Reeker has flash and all. It's hard to find anything here.
Need a flash charm, you would imagine, to make something work. Speaking of flashes, Adam, very aggressive on that top side. Actually loses his summoner, but just gains a little bit of harassment, trying to use that World Ender advantage over Melonik, just not quite making it stick.
Yeah, I mean, trying to get that third Q to finish him off. He has so much pressure in this lane, but does overstep a bit, and it burns a lot of cooldowns to try and find it. Ultimately, I don't think much punish is going to come out. The fact he has a Hex Drinker means that Melonik, even with his level 6, doesn't have too much kill pressure, and right now Akabane is behind because he spent so much time in the bot lane, still level 4, so Adam has the freedom to go for aggressive plays like this.
I think you see Melonik without teleport and just like, okay, let's see if we can take a good enough trade to make sure they can't stand the turret. I think at that point, Adam is realizing that the play is probably not going to be happening around topside for a little while. Of course, now he won't have flash for something like a Herald fight, should it come to it, but still, trying to find those micro advantages to get the most out of this laning phase. Again, just taking the HP advantage.
Yeah, and I think another place where I've seen the HP advantage is in mid lane. Czekolad not having a fun time right now. He has hit level 6, he does have that ultimate ability, but you're not getting a window to move. Reeker has regained control of the lane and is applying so much pressure.
Now that is, I mean, I know you guys are the LPL guys, but remember when he played Victor and would just ult the wave to get prio? That's the Azir version of that. Just literally saying, you don't have teleport, get out of my lane, lose a cannon wave to tower. And Czekolad is now trapped in lane, but GameWard are going bot side instead.
Yeah, they're going bot side. Erdote's dead. There's nothing he can do, and Crownie's going to be next to follow. He's got a cleanse, he's got a flash, but why would you burn any of them? Double kill to Innaxe, and GameWard have monopolized the bot side.
Yeah, such a good play from GameWard. When everything felt it was spiraling out of control, mid was in a rough spot, top was in a good, rough spot, they find the window, the pocket of vision to lean through, and they get 2 kills for the Sivir of all champions.
Yeah, and I think looking at that play, you see Reeker, massive control over mid. Czekolad is not going to be part of that play. Ahri needs to reset unless they lose a huge cannon wave under that tower. But they just kind of lose control of the rest of the map and they're like, okay, so we've got this one lane sorted, and they forget about what's happening on the bot side. They don't have total information, full prey to GameWard's aggressive plays.
Again, so far it has been BDSA kind of playing, again, both teams playing to the script we kind of saw from them right there. BDSA, we have strong solo lanes. We know we're going to have priority with the Aatrox and of course with the Azir as well, but on the other side of this, it's been the support in jungle. It's been the Trundle with this Amumu try to just make moves, and they're still making moves because they don't want to give up this Herald for free. They're moving around now, and yeah, you can't fight this right now, Sheo and Erdote. You have to try and back this one away. You do not have the priority in mid. Bandage Shot does come out, but maybe they're trying to go towards top lane. There is a tie on top, and that is going to be Adam picking up a kill. Almost a solo one. Didn't use neither moves, but he hasn't got ultimate. He used it to clear the wave. Now Akabane's caught between a rock and a hard place. He's in the middle of the pit and nowhere to go. 2 quick kills. BDSA just using their priority better.
And GameWard, they shift their focus from the bot side of the map to the top side of the map for the first time. And at that point, you realize, hang on, what's happening with this top lane? Adam is already so strong on this top side of the map. Completely flips the play on its head by taking Akali out of the equation and forcing GameWard to respond.
Yeah, and I think a big thing as well was the decision-making, because they actually send the Czekolad towards the bot lane. They don't want to give free plates over to the Aphelios. But the problem is, by doing that, you're down a member here, and especially with Adam completely outplaying Melonik on this one. Right, so you've already got your Ahri commit to the bot lane. The Akali has just died as well. GameWard really in a rough spot after this one.
And they're trying to make more of it. You can see there the Ahri, who was in bot side using that Spirit Rush to see if they can get something. They got a plate for Innaxe and Kamilius, but outside of that, nothing really to be done. Spell Shield there, the Tongue Lash, but again, just not really finding the same kind of purchase. And despite the kill lead, we're looking at an even goal game.
Yeah, and I'm actually really looking forward to this because I'm looking at both these teams, both coming in with a lot of momentum on kind of like a larger macro sense, how they've done in the tournament, how they've done in the split. Now in this game, these two forces heading towards each other have some of their strongest parts of their rosters now ahead. Adam, one of the best individual laners at the tournament, has an individual advantage on a champion that can really affect these team fights. On the other side, Innaxe, the guy that pentakilled Karmine Core to stop them getting to EU Masters, has their own lead. Both of them now have to outplay the other to try and run away with this game.
Super heal there by Czekolad. He's really not enjoying this lane fight. I will give him his due, fairness, it's dues where they're due, but it is about keeping yourself. Yeah, I know, right? But it is about keeping up with the CS. We are going to see Shelly now drop down into the mid lane as Adam does join the rest of the party. It's a 3v3, so I don't think they're going to be able to get the full ward just yet. They really would love that Curse of Sap Mummy for Kamilius. There's the Glacial Prison coming out to maybe try force something, but with the rest of GameWard all corralling in, no one from BDSA wants that. But again, just kind of a overforce in the mid lane, but they still get the plates.
Yeah, but just the build-up of pressure, right? The fact that Reeker's had that lane advantage, the tower's already low, the Herald puts it to one plate, and Adam, something he's been known for from when he was in the LEC was fine. Oh, Engage comes in.
Engage comes in, and he is just locked down. Where are you supposed to go? It's a nice shuffle, but it ain't gonna do much for you. The Emperor has fallen, and GameWard not to be done out in the solo lanes.
Okay, so Reeker taken down. That's going to open up a dragon for GameWard. So again, while that mid plate worked out very well, topside going poorly.
Oh, flash in. Adam looking for those sweet spots. You can see the perfect execution for Melonik. Can he get himself away? He cannot. Adam with the solo bolo.
Yeah, and Melonik is really struggling in this matchup. Wasn't even close to having kill pressure. Still the Hex Trinket in inventory for Adam. Just gets wiped off the map. And sure, GameWard do get that dragon. Definitely a solid one, but they are bleeding out in the top lane.
And that is a matchup they bought into. They knew this was the matchup. You know the player you're against. You know how well he's doing at this tournament. Melonik, who has so often been this role player for the team, really struggling. Luckily enough for him, this jungle support manages to go towards that mid lane, take down Reeker. It gets them victories on the other side of the map, but this is starting to be a real problem point, especially with the power that Aatrox will have later into the game.
And this is kind of something because we saw BDSA being a top-side focused team in the quarterfinals. They lent towards bot, and something they said in the interviews was, we felt like Adam could just handle his opponent, and it feels like this is a similar essence what we're seeing here.
Manhandling his opponent.
Absolutely. Adam feels so comfortable in this matchup, so they don't even need to invest too much attention there. They can focus on putting resources on the rest of the map, ensure that they know, Adam's coming out now 2-0 on the Aatrox, 20 CS lead, and has that Eclipse already finished. That aim does so much damage.
Yeah, it only gets worse from here. At that point, like, you side of that is like, okay, the quick trades become actually half health trades, and that makes it very hard to have extended laning phases. You need someone covering for you. You need someone who's there to back you up. I'm expecting that this tower's going to go down with the next wave, the next two waves. Melonik really doesn't have much they can say about it.
It's a level and a half difference right now as Melonik looks to try
didn't do much.
Yeah, didn't do a lot. Well, he's got the Hex Drinker as well, so even in some surprise, he takes a couple of turret shots, everything that he still has that extra AP shield, so it's just going to be that little bit harder there for Melonik to really kind of bring this one back, but this is where you start to see the shot calling, shall we say, from GameWard come into play. Do you try to dig out your top lane, or do you do what I think is what they're trying to do right now and just full in on bot side?
I think if you double down on top lane, things go from bad to worse. Aatrox is a notorious 1vx champion when they do get ahead, and they are very much ahead. Almost 3,000 gold up in the individual advantage. I think what GameWard needs to do for a little while now is just make the game not about the Aatrox. You have a strong Sivir. You can force plays with the Sivir, and you've got flash on your Amumu, plenty of ways to go out around the map. You have vision on the bot side of the map. There are ways you can start making plays, but you've got to make sure the Aatrox isn't influencing the game more than you are.
I just think the difficulty is, something I was trying to bring up before is Adam, something he was so known for in the LEC days, is when he gets priority in his top lane, he will take any opportunity to move in, find roam angles, find ways to influence the rest of the map, and that's kind of what happens, right? He shoves the wave into Melonik, and then he moves down. He's with the team, trying to look for proactive plays, and this Aatrox Sejuani combo is so potent. If you can connect, stack up the passive, you're just going to get deleted.
And I mean, this is the big thing right now, as you were talking there, Nymera. It's about influencing the rest of the map. Not only do they get the turret, but they also get the Spirit Rush out of Czekolad. It shouldn't mean too much of a difference. They will have a Rift Herald maybe to fight now in 50 seconds, but about whether or not you want to fight it, that's a different story right now, because it does feel like BDSA, they've woken up, and GameWard aren't happy about it. So they're going to try and force down this bot side. They're trying to jump in. Erdote will use a Devour, but he hasn't been able to get fully away. He does still have Flash, but he got stopped by the pillar. He flashes away finally, but they've already taken down a kill. Another three-man ultimate from Reeker, but Innaxe is untouched, and Innaxe just moving forward. There's the Moonlight Vigil. There's the Akali trying to make this one work. Perfect execution, and Crown flashes away. Now Adam trying to see if he can bring this one right back. Get over here, and Adam gets a consolation prize.
All that craziness, there's only 3 people go down. GameWard do find the advantage. They do find a window, but they don't have enough follow through, and Adam is there to shut any play down.
Exactly. This play is going great up until the Aatrox arrives. You need to make sure you finish off the play before Adam comes up to the party as well. That's to the point where like your heads-up display changes. This current mission, survive. BDS Academy trying to run out with this one, and it is a good cancel. They keep Erdote in there, and as soon as you start stacking up the lethal tempo, you start getting loads of attack speed on Innaxe. This is a very winnable fight up until you chase into raid boss Adam.
Yeah, I mean, that's where it gets scary. They could have just taken the kills they got, but they overstep a bit too much. Akabane walking into the Aatrox just gets absolutely deleted. But I think it kind of shows what GameWard want in their fights, right? When they're more spread out, when they're more chaotic, when you don't have the defensive wall for the backline of BDSA, that's where they can start to find favor, especially because Melonik joining the fight late on this Akali. Tahm Kench already being down was able to just pick them apart, but still going to be struggling when Adam joins the fight.
And I mean, it's nearly a 3,000 gold lead, but that is just Adam right now. That is literally the Aatrox, nothing more. Because if you look at the way the gold distribution is on the bottom half of the map, you've got
Adam
Sivir.
has a bigger lead than his team.
I was going to say, yeah. Adam has a bigger lead than anyone else combined but on his team, but like it is just kind of about getting this Sivir up to 3-4 items, and it is kind of moving towards that point for GameWard. They just need to make sure, as you mentioned, stay away from the Aatrox.
It's like in a Pokemon game where you have a really over-leveled starter, and it's like, we should go do this battle. It's like, no, we're going here, but I'm meant to be the Pokemon trader. You are nothing.
He decides where and when, but that's the big thing now. It's got to be on GameWard to be creative, to find these moments where they can maybe get a fight or where it's on their terms, away from Adam, who doesn't have teleport. They now know he's coming in towards this Baron pit with Shelly, so they're going to back themselves away immediately. Like we just said, you do not want to mess with this guy at all.
Yeah, but you see, so BDSA are trying to force him away from the Herald while Sheo solos out the Dragon. So BDSA are posturing aggressively, but they don't have the numbers to actually fight this. Adam's really trying to do a lot of work, and Erdote is there if he does get caught by a charm to pull him out, and that is enough to force the reset in the Herald. So now Dragon will be picked up by BDSA, and the Herald is being stalled.
Yeah, but like, look at these items already. You've got double MR coming out of Adam on the Aatrox. You sat there and one charm lands, you're like, okay, so I'm walking towards you a little slower now. There's no real damage that comes after that point, and it allows BDS Academy to position so aggressively at this point. Even with a Trundle thrown down, Adam will survive long enough. Now, they have managed to stay on the top side of the map and trade well enough to keep on this Herald. BDS Academy are not ready to let it go.
Yeah, they're moving over to collapse here. The Herald will be taken, but the big thing here is that you see the mid wave being pushed in. If they force GameWard to move up to the top side of the map, they're looking for more.
Yeah, Melonik just kind of bit off more than he could chew, and he's on a one-way mission right now. They're already covering off his escape path right now, kind of saying, look, you're going to go somewhere, and it ain't back towards your base. He's going to try and be as much of a disruption as he possibly can, take out as many minions as he possibly can, and most importantly, I was going to say not give over a kill to a carry, but Reeker does pick it up.
Wait, Crownie used ult for that.
Yeah, he wanted the kill.
He didn't get it.
He still wanted the kill. I don't care if he got it or not. He wanted the kill. Yeah, again, like, God loves a trier.
I will say, though, I feel like for BDSA, you could have just pushed up mid there, right? You had them completely routed. That tier 2 mid could have been taken instead, which I think would have been more valuable. Maybe tunnel vision a bit on the kill, but they still get it, so definitely not a negative for them. But the Herald is now in the pocket of GameWard, and I think especially when you're up against Azir, who is so hard to move from when he's defending towers, getting onto that mid lane tier 1, taking it down would do so much for them.
Yeah, and they had, you know, BDS Academy still have priority, right? As much as they can run across the map and get these free kills, they have the luxury to do that because you're never losing push in that Aatrox lane. Azir is very happy to be sat there with someone hovering in the lane, so GameWard have very limited opportunities to put this Herald down in a good situation. Now, if they find a fight first, maybe they can snowball it.
They can look for it. It's a bit of a 4v3 at the moment. Erdote has nowhere to go. TP coming in. That's going to be the Aatrox trying to make something work. It's a double TP. Reeker's here first, and Adam's on the backside. He's going to be huge, and they can get on top of him. They try and stun him down, but he's just got so much magic resistance. He's got so much damage. Innaxe has nowhere to go. The Akali picks up one. That's the Aphelios traded back.
So
low. Look at Adam. So low. Finally goes down, and Melonik has joined the fight. He's continuously trying to make this Akali work. It ends up being a 3-for-3 as both teams end up throwing everything at it.
I cannot believe that was an even fight in terms of kill. I mean, the term raid boss, very, very applicable there, but Innaxe doing so much. No flash. He was dead. Everyone watching knew he was dead, and he still tried to get every little bit of damage out that he could.
And honestly, I was getting flashbacks to the quarterfinals. Remember that quadra kill comes in from one of these great double teleport plays. BDS Academy, they managed to just buy enough time with the tankier members on the bot side to corral GameWard into the right spot. But even with that, you still got this Sivir doing big damage. And Innaxe managed to get just enough done to make this into an even DPS run.
Yeah, I feel like this situation, look at him. In melee range of Aatrox and Sejuani, but still, he comes out, getting as much damage as possible.
Roll, by the way.
And puts him down to enough health, gets him low. And the big thing to think about is this was an even fight in terms of kills. But GameWard were down in gold, so it does favor them. And also, they burnt those double teleports. Innaxe still has his flash because it wasn't available in that fight. So GameWard feeling pretty happy with the outcome of that one.
Still got to be very, very careful. I will give massive props to Melonik, who was suffering, shall we say, in that top side. Picked up a good few kills. Is definitely not keeping it going, as I'm going to see now Akabane having to flash away. Erdote trying to use that from the depths to make something work there as Shelly gets to bop her head into that mid tower.
So actually what we're seeing here with the Herald is going back to what we were saying before that last big fight, was actually saying, actually, GameWard don't have great options to put the Herald down. They're likely going to be pushed in on multiple lanes. But I like what they did there, because they look for the fight, even if it's down in gold, even if it's a little bit off kilter. But they do that just to try and secure the map, at the hopes of having a big power play. I think, again, it's the right mindset, particularly now that they're starting to fall behind in this game. But make no mistake, they're still falling behind in this game.
Yeah, it's BDSA with their solo laners having a significant lead. Pretty much, if you look at the way the gold difference is, it's literally about 1,000 in mid, 500 in jungle, nearly 3,000 in the top side. But the longer the game goes on, the more this Sivir becomes relevant. The more that this Sivir will just start. Because again, yes, you have a massive amount of damage and magic resistance on Adam. You have no armor. You have absolutely none. So you will be shredded by a 3-item Sivir.
Yeah, he's going towards that. And obviously, a big thing for the Sivir is like 4 items. 4 items when you have your Infinity Edge and your LDR complete is where you start to really shred through things. So Innaxe at that point can absolutely massacre, but it comes down to him being able to position these team fights against the strength of BDSA. And right now, both teams are posturing for this dragon. BDSA have control of the wave in mid, and GameWard, they have to respond, so they'll be pulled out the river towards there.
And it is, again, one of those more emotive points, right, where you have Adam on with this lead player that really wants to reprove himself. This ex-LEC player who's at the heights of Europe, and then Innaxe on the other side, who strived so hard this year. It might come down to this fight, Aatrox versus Sivir. Round 3 fight.
Here comes a new challengers. We'll see what they want to go for. Again, this is only second dragon for both GameWard or BDSAs, but they're going to go for it.
Yeah, TP coming down the flank. They're trying to find the angle, but Czekolad's caught.
Czekolad is caught. He's knocked up. He's CC'd down and killed. Adam, though, has been completely isolated, and now Reeker's been caught as well. He has to get devoured, so he doesn't go down. Crownie tries to get some damage, but it's equaled out by a little bit of honey fruit. You gotta love the fruits of the forest, as we can see there, with the Gravitum using so much, trying to flash in. Crown shot looking for something there. Crownie not quite able to go down, but they are going to lose kamilius on the side of GameWard. So, GameWard still looking to try and kite this one back. Innaxe trying to see if he can keep himself alive. They can't get onto the backside, and Innaxe all alone in the world. He flashes away. He's trying to outplay this. He is outplaying this, and he trades back Reeker. Really well played there by Innaxe, but he's all alone. He's going to try and make this one work. It's 2 tanks for the moment, but yeah, here comes Crown shot, and there is the ace coming in for BDSA.
So while we had this Sivir versus Aatrox, yeah, you've got some late game insurance in there too. Reeker and Crownie survived through the majority of that fight, and GameWard, while they do try and outplay the range discrepancy, while they try and close that distance, BDS Academy, they close ranks, outplay the fight just about.
Oh, but what a heroic effort, because you got to think, if Innaxe had died sooner, if he hadn't taken out Reeker, Baron is up and available. It is a very fast Baron with an Azir and Aphelios if they were still alive. So yes, BDSA get the dragon, they get the fight won, but GameWard keep themselves in this game, and Innaxe is doing everything he can to try and make this go in their favor.
And this was the Sivir that felled Karmine Corp. We remind you, pentakill back in the LFL playoffs to secure their spot at EU Masters over the multiple time winning roster. And in this game, a lot of hopes now rest on this yet again. And it is only game 1. They've got a long way to go.
I was going to say, it's game 1 of a best of 5, but we are seeing massive performances so far from Innaxe, and even on the side of BDSA. Adam really coming to the forefront. His most picked champion in all of EU Masters Summer 2022. It has been such a powerhouse for him that you can see why. He's level 14. He's absolutely massive. He's 5 levels ahead of kamilius. As we can see now, Sheo, he's caught out here. He's going to be stunned up, taking a lot of harassment, but he's going to turn this one back around. I'm not caught.
Oh.
You are, and they're going to make this one kill work for them there as Adam flashes over the wall to try and make this one work for him. Reeker gets himself a shuffle, and GameWard look like they have nowhere else to go. They've lost their bot lane. They don't have a defense.
And Innaxe doing everything he can, dodges away from the Emperor's Divide, but there was nowhere to position safely. Ends up in the middle of a bunch of BDSA walls, and they take him down, and now looking towards the Baron. Akabane does not have Flash, so it's going to be a bit tricky to get into the pit, but I feel like no, he's backing away, they're giving it up, so big advantage gain for BDSA. Without the Sivir, they don't have the teamfight power.
Trying to make your way through this BDSA comp is so difficult, and we haven't even had to see that from GameWard. They've been the ones on the back foot.
Oh, Czekolad.
To that point, Czekolad very much on the back foot.
Yeah, he's on the back foot, and honestly, 1 foot in the grave, because he ain't going to be surviving that one there. Another kill to Adam, 5, 2, and 4. And the quiet carry, I gotta say, is Sheo, 2, 0, and 12. Been huge on the Sejuani.
Yeah, and I mean here, I feel like GameWard were kind of testing the water here. Like, sure, we can throw some things at the Sejuani, see what we find, but instantly, BDSA pull the trigger. They call the TP in, they go for the aggressive play, and Innaxe here kites away from the Aatrox, but suddenly there's an Azir behind you, nowhere to go, and he just goes down.
Yeah, and the only reason you can see these solo laners making these big plays is because of this facilitating from Sheo, and he's at it again.
Yeah, he's at it again, indeed. He's going to see GameWard. They're just trying to run away. Honestly, they're just trying to get out alive with some kind of health bar. They won't go down just yet, and BDSA, they're just feeling comfortable. This feels like the game has all of a sudden gone from 2,000, 3,000 gold lead to a 7,000 gold lead now.
That's the thing, is we saw the gold lead kind of stagnate for a lot of the mid game, but here they've blown it open, and now with the Baron still in hand, they can start to try and take some structures and really extend it, start to put the pressure on a GameWard.
And I really look at this game as a whole, and the level 1 was great from GameWard, and we did see them try to rock the stability of BDSA's comp, but they managed to see it through those stormier waters, the BDS Academy, and they came out to a wonderful mid game. There really just isn't the scaling parity from GameWard to deal with this team that's ahead.
It's a very deep TP, but I don't think you're going to be able to do anything because this fight's already started. Adam, solo, finally goes down. The Moonlight Vigil is good, but Kamilius does not fall. Akabane uses the Subjugate to keep himself alive, and now they're onto the back side of this. You can see Melonik wants to try and get onto Crownie. He wants to go to Reeker, who gets charmed, and they're going to have so much more damage. Reeker goes down, but with the Shurima's legacy, they're just keeping everyone away. But BDSA, you've nowhere to go.
There's no exit here. They're trapped under the tower. They're going to try and brute force through Melonik, but Innaxe is hovering at the side, buying time, trying to look for this one. Erdote still has the gobble to play safety, so it would make it difficult to get onto Crownie.
It's so hard. It's a 3v3, but you don't really have the health bars to go for it. Czekolad, he has got it stunned down, but Crownie's got cleanse, so it's not going to work. And all of a sudden, with these baroned up minions, it's working against them.
They tried shooting their way out, change things up a little. Might not have the easy escape plan, but they get away with it just by pure firepower.
I mean, such a huge moment there for GameWard. You could almost feel like it was going so well, considering Melonik TP'd so deep and the fight was still going in their favor. But they're just, BDSA are just so much late game insurance. It doesn't matter if you take down the raid boss.
Yeah, I mean, they're doing such a good job of re-establishing themselves, grouping up around their carries, defending them, and the tower from Reeker got so much value in that encounter.
And I'm looking actually between this series and this one game and then what happened in the quarterfinals as well. BDS Academy have been so comfortable when they've managed to group up, when they've managed to have these compositions, play through a range advantage, play through their carries and bring it up against another LFL team in GameWard. They are so comfortable with what's happened in the playoffs.
Akabane now going to find himself underneath the tower with a giant Poro running him down. As you can see, the wave was already prepped in. They're going to jump straight in on top of him. He's going to get the Subjugate down, so he's keeping himself alive just about. But Adam, being the Darken of war that he is, shall bring him to a swift end. Czekolad now running in to plenty of interference. Innaxe having to use the on the hunt as well, and Czekolad has to use the final little rush to get himself over the wall. It feels desperate. It feels like BDSA are just in total control. They're just picking off everyone as they try and just take away their jungle.
And it just feels like there's so much damage throughout, right? We've now seen Crownie pick up the Infinity Edge Rabadons for Reeker, and Adam never stopped doing damage. He was doing tons of damage the whole game, so if anyone does end up out of position, even the tankier members, even Akabane, when he uses his ult on the Sejuani, goes down in just a moment.
Now you've got a soul point for BDS Academy. I'm not going to lie, I feel like the game could very much be over before the next dragon as well. Cloud Soul as it is, the most powerful soul in the game, so I've heard. Don't let Jamada hear that.
But he'd be happy if you're saying that, right?
I was going to say, what do you mean? He'd love that.
That's the problem, because now I know that the next break is just going to be Jamada talking about the old Cloud Soul. But either way,
he'll look at this and go, look, the reason BDSA won is because they got Cloud Soul.
Okay. Do they get Cloud Soul? That's the questions we come into it. But yeah, I mean, right now, it does feel like for GameWard, it's not just about killing the Aatrox or, oh, Czekolad. My boy, my sweet summer boy. There's nowhere for you to go. There's nowhere for you to hide. You shall fall in the same state. But, oh, actually, whoa! Aphelios died, so I don't know how Crownie got caught, so that's actually a trade for 1-for-1.
Okay, so this is actually something we saw a little bit earlier into the game. GameWard finally managed to find a little bit of a split fight. They're grouping up again, though.
Adam Tahm looking for more. Kamilius forced to flash away. They've used the subjugate as well. And it looks like they've already used so much, they couldn't really work that fight.
Yeah, I feel like it's just so difficult because, sure, you can hit Adam, and Innaxe does shred him at this point, but if you're hitting Adam, it's not just the fact that Adam can hit you, but Reeker can also hit you. The short range of GameWard kind of biting them in the back there, and even with the Aphelios down, even with Crownie, who was 8-2-5 prior to that death down, it's still not enough.
Yeah, but again, we can kind of see the good and the bad of what's happening in the interactions between these two teams. GameWard need the split fights, so you're not actually dealing with this range disparity. If they're not there, they don't get to use their range. That's great. Pick people off and use your better mobility. We saw that very briefly at the start, and then right after, you saw him group up, say, okay, this is how the fight doesn't want to go. But of course, managed to just about get away with it this time.
He was on vision. Kamilius was on vision. They knew he was there. That's just Crownie just not looking at the map, sadly, for himself, and does get punished for it.
We've all had the moment where you click the map and you're like, you know, there's a fight going top lane. I can't look at my character.
I play locked camera, and that's wise. You know what's going on. But yeah, look, it happens. It does delay a little bit of a push from BDSA, but they have total control around this Baron pit now. It's going to be so difficult for the side of GameWard to really get some kind of a contest.
I think especially because Akabane, again, doesn't have flash here. He can't get in the pit, right? That's why they're willing to go for this Baron. They have the DPS. They know they can't be a contest. Boom, it's done. Wasn't even anything GameWard can do, and now it's an 11,000 goal lead. Another Baron where they can really start cracking open the base.
Innaxe is going to be a little bit caught out, though, for the moment. You can see Reeker moving his way now towards it. They've got Melonik covering the mid lane, so it's a 5v4 for the moment, but you've already lost the on the hunt. So Innaxe is going to be relying on just his own Ghost to make sure he can get himself repositioned. Speaking of repositioning, Erdote going to be forced into a little bit of a fight right now. That's a great Moonlight visual, and now Adam moves forward and says, I do not care. Innaxe flashing away, trying to keep himself as healthy as he possibly can, because without the Sivir, you have no wave clear. There's a bit of a 1v1 happening in the jungle, but Innaxe gets jumped upon, and Innaxe gets taken down. Akabane tries to keep himself alive. Czekolad shall have no such luck as he's weighted by the Emperor of BDSA. Reeker kicks up that kill and ends up being a 32-minute game. No Cloud Soul, but BDSA looking super comfortable.
Yeah, and now they're just going to be able to end it and once again continue their undefeated streak. BDSA still yet to drop a single game in the Summit EU Masters.
And look, GameWard came in with a plan. They had a level 1. They got a fantastic level 1. But it just wasn't enough. Adam and Reeker are just too good. They're just too strong.
And they also had the tools for the job, the right tools for the job, because if you're playing this GameWard composition, you have to blow open early. And they got about half of the way there. They got that level 1. They didn't quite manage to just put the nails into that coffin. I wonder if we'll start seeing them trying to match scaling a little bit more. Maybe ban the Azir. I would really like them to ban the Azir. I don't think you can let that go through P1. Lots of things to be addressed. It is one game. They get to adapt. They will have to show their adaptation, which they've shown in LFL.
Yeah, I think we all saw the solo lanes being an issue, the Azir being a problem, but the Aatrox, the Akali didn't work as an answer. Like, yeah, there was moments for Melonik where in fights when he joins late, he could be relevant, but that lane matchup was not pretty.
No, it really, really wasn't. It really felt like it just was BDSA having stronger solo lanes at the end of it, despite showing all their hands at the start. But they stay unbeaten in this tournament and lead the series 1-0. We got a very entertaining game 1, so you should stay tuned for more after a short break.